Hello. This is a demo of the current state of the per-dapp-network selection. Um, so let's get into it. So one of the main things is that the call for switch Ethereum chain doesn't really change very much. It's still changing the globally selected network. It's just also setting what network is selected for the particular dApp. So in this case, the globally selected network is mainnet. The dApp is getting back mainnet. If I switch this to Gorley, it works just like it does today. Yeah. And similarly, if I go to another dApp and I switch to, let's say mainnet here, it should already be on mainnet, but that's actually a different thing that switch Ethereum chain will do now. So we're on Gorley here, but we can see the network is mainnet. That's because it has its own selected network, right? But if I were to do switch Ethereum chain here to a chain I'm already on, like where the dApp's already on, I still will get an approval dialog because it's still changing the globally selected network. So in that way, switch Ethereum chain very much still works the same way it does today. So where things get kind of interesting here is when like you think about the distinction between requests that have confirmations and requests that don't. So in general, the requests that have confirmations, they require the current, like the Metamask's globally selected network to be the same as the dApp. And so in the case that they're not, we have to resolve that. So how do we do that? We do it with basically queuing all of the requests that have confirmation dialogues. And then when it's that request's turn in the queue, we check if we need to switch the network. If we do, we actually prompt them similar to how they would get a switch Ethereum chain call. So just to demonstrate that, we can see here, this dApp is on Gorley. The wallet is on mainnet. So if I were to go and call send transaction or say watch asset, currently the wallet's not on the right chain for this to work, right? So when I hit send, I actually first get a confirmation to switch chain to the dApp selected network, which is Gorley. So I switch network. The very next thing is, okay, I get the wallet watch asset call. So yeah, that's that kind of illustrates how we're still using this globally selected network for anything that has a confirmation. But what about things that don't have a confirmation? Well, for example, ETH chain ID is one of those methods that doesn't have a confirmation. And if I switch the chain off of Gorley, we're on mainnet, I'm still always going to get back Gorley here because we are sending a request to, in fact, Gorley. For example, if I do get block, we have number is that, right? I guess, yeah, I gotta convert it to hex and everything, but yeah, this is definitely, not hitting mainnet. It's hitting Gorley for this dApp. And this worked in the previous iterations of the POC, but in order to make this work, it was actually switching the globally selected network in the background. Whereas this current iteration, we're not switching the network in the background for methods that don't have confirmations. So what does that let us do? It basically means that if in this dApp, I were to say call wallet watch asset, which causes a confirmation to show up. If I go to a different dApp, in the previous iteration, if I call ETH chain ID here, it would wait until all the confirmations are completed, and then it would process it. It would get queued. No, we are no longer queuing non-confirmation requests, so I just get my response back right away. If I were to copy this guy here, you can see, I can call any of these methods that I like that don't have confirmations, and I'm unblocked. But it does. The methods that do get queued are the ones with confirmations. So if I say do a watch asset from this dApp, say dApp A, you can see here. Well, actually, let me just scoot this guy down. You can see here I got 2 approvals to do, right? And that's because, I got 2 of these queued requests. If I go to the approval, this is the switch for the first one because it needs to be on Corley. Remind you, the second request is for mainnet, but we just switched off of mainnet, right? So we're gonna now switch back and then add watch asset for the second dApp. So you can see it's like adding these switch chains where they're needed, and only where they're needed. You can also see, these events are like these values are received through the event API, so that's all working now. Like if I switch here, it doesn't change anything there, so that's great. So one thing is like, okay, there's a lot of edge cases to this. Like, what if you call this method, then this method, or that one, and then that one? I've walked through them very exhaustively, but just to demonstrate like kind of some particularly sticky points, I guess. Let's say we have 2 dApps and they're both on the same network. The queuing all still works. So right now, let's set it so that the wallet is on Linea. So it's on the wrong network. And then I come into here and I say, watch asset again. I get that first switch. And then I come into here and I do the same. Let's just change the name so it's you can see I get the updated icon. I got 2 things to do. Okay, so this is the switch for the first request. And now I get the first wallet watch asset. And now the second one. Yeah, so that actually demonstrates a future improvement that is planned. Like we have an idea of how to do it, just have to get it done, though it's doesn't seem to be something that should block us moving this to the next phase of like getting it ready to merge and getting ready for production. But yeah, so what that highlights is that well, let's turn the feature flag off for a second, and then I can show you how things currently work, so I can contrast that. So feature flags off. When I call wallet watch asset, I get 1 token there. If I do it again from the same domain or from anywhere really, it actually is batching them in this approval UI. And there's another sort of similar batching around, like, say, send transaction, where you can kind of scrub back and forth. But yeah, basically, this functionality of batching currently, basically, with the current approach, the current queuing approach, it kind of goes away because we don't know at this point whether or not we're going to have to switch Ethereum chain in between these. So if effectively, we just queue up every request that has a confirmation. Uh, like I mentioned, there is a decent way for us to resolve that, where it can be a little smarter about knowing whether or not to queue a confirmation. But generally, yeah, I'll show you how this currently would work with the feature flag on. So I hit send, come back, I do it again. I get a, I have another notification there, but when I go to the approval window, it's not batching them. It'll batch the next ones, but that's just kind of a oddity that isn't necessarily intended. But as I said, yeah, the next iteration will improve this. Yeah, you can see like the next ones are batched. But yeah, for now, this is it is what it is. It's not so bad. The key is that it works across all these different cases of going between different methods. And yeah, that's the majority of the functionality. I think there's probably one little last piece, which kind of just show off the more complicated, I guess, flows through things here. So, okay, this guy's on mainnet. Let's make this one go to Gorley. And then we'll put the wallet, like the globally selected network, to Linea. So we have Gorley on this dApp, mainnet on this dApp, and of course Linea as the globally selected network. So what happens if I call watch asset from this dApp, and then before I do anything there, I call wallet watch asset from this dApp. So we're waiting. We have 2 requests. Come back to the confirmation. We have a switch for the first one. Now our first wallet watch asset, and then we have another switch to the second one, wants Gorley. And that's it. Now we're done. And if we look here, we're on the whatever the last one was, Gorley, because again, switch Ethereum chain still does the same stuff. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. There's one part of the UI that I think could use some love. It's basically the switch Ethereum chain dialog has another piece of context that becomes important. It's basically what is the dApp's selected network that's being changed. So to illustrate where it kind of gets a little weird, is when so when let's say, okay, what's the current chain ID for this dApp? It's 0x1. So if the wallet is on a different network, okay, so we're on Gorley here, dApp's on 0x1. If I do switch Ethereum chain to 1, what would you expect? Well, since switch Ethereum chain works the same as it always did, the globally selected network should change from Gorley to mainnet. And I should get an approval for that, right? So let's do that. And see, it just says we're going from Goerli to mainnet. But there's another piece of information, which is that the DApp selected network is unchanged here. Because, if I were to use any of these other methods, like, get block or whatever, I'm getting blocks from mainnet, not Goerli. And so this kind of seems a little odd at first when you think the DApp is already on mainnet. But really, we're just switching the globally selected network to be mainnet. So from the dapp's perspective, it doesn't really change anything too much. So maybe for that UI, I think we can look at the different states that things can be in when they get there, and try to figure out what a better look at things are. But I think for now, it's it's not fundamentally broken. So I don't think there's too much issue. There's one other challenge that we do need to look at resolving, though I'm not sure if we need to block on it because it's resolvable by turning the feature flag off. But currently, with the feature flag off, basically the user can change the selected network for the DApp manually by just clicking a different globally selected network. It's all like all dapps are using the globally selected network, right? But oh, it's a bit odd. Might be a little bug there actually. Okay, there you go. Just needed a refresh. So currently the user can effectively change what the selected network is for the DApp manually. With the feature flag on, there's no UI that like in the wallet will change the network for the DApp. So maybe we want to add that in the future, but at least for now, if that's something you really need to do, you can turn the feature flag off and then just do it the old-fashioned way. So yeah, not a huge issue, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for your time and talk to you soon, I guess.